before the first word, before the first law, before the first thought that knew itself as a thought, there was only the primordial, not darkness, not silence, not emptiness. Those are words for absence. The primordial was not absent. It was everything, every answer and every question occupying the same infinite space, simultaneously, indistinguishable from each other, unresolved, howling without sound, perfectly still and violently restless at once. It was the archive of unexistence, the great library before libraries, every truth that would ever be spoken already present, and every lie, every life that would ever be lived already there, and every death, every god, every mortal, every law, every violation of every law, all of it, at once, forever, and for an eon beyond the reach of any measurement, the primordial endured in this stagnant, terrible perfection. But perfection, it turns out, is its own kind of agony. The answers within it yearned for definition. The mysteries howled for change. Everything that could ever exist pressed against everything else that could ever exist, with nowhere to go and no way to become, until the weight became unbearable, until the primordial did the only thing it could do. It decided to solve its own paradox. From the infinite everything, two forces tore themselves free, not chosen, not designed, inevitable. The way opposing poles of a magnet cannot occupy the same point forever without eventually, catastrophically finding their direction. The first emerged from the crystallization of every answer the primordial had ever contained: structure, certainty, the unbreakable desire for things to be defined, ordered, and permanent. He called himself
Axiom, the grand architect. I am the pattern beneath all patterns, the law before laws were written, every structure that has ever stood, every boundary that has ever held, every rule that has ever prevented existence from dissolving back into the nothing it came from. That is my work. That has always been my work. Order is not a cage. Order is the only reason anything exists long enough to complain about cages.
The second emerged from the eternalization of every mystery the primordial had ever contained: chaos, entropy, the unbreakable desire for things to change, decay, break apart, and become something other than what they were. He called himself
Spartax, the great schism. I am the crack in every foundation, the entropy in every system, the reason nothing, not even the grandest architecture the universe has ever produced, lasts forever. My counterpart will tell you that is a flaw. It isn't. A universe that cannot end cannot change. A universe that cannot change cannot grow. A universe that cannot grow is just a very elaborate cage. I simply refuse to live in one.
And so they faced each other, order and chaos, positive and negative, the force that builds and the force that unmakes, two absolutes, equal in power, perfectly opposed, a stalemate that could have lasted forever. It almost did. What broke it was not a battle. It was not a negotiation. It was something neither force had ever done before, and something that cost each of them more than anything that came after ever would. It was sacrifice. Axiom moved first. He drew a boundary around himself, not to protect himself, but to limit himself. He inscribed into the fabric of what would become reality an unbreakable rule.
Order and chaos must eternally compete. Not because I could not win, because a universe where order wins completely is not a universe. It is a monument, and monuments do not live. So I made myself the rulebook of a game I could never stop playing. I gave existence its first law, and in doing so, I became bound by it.
Then Spartax moved. He reached into himself, into the core of what he was, and he fragmented it deliberately, consciously. He injected the self-limiting principle of imperfection into chaos itself.
Absolute destruction is useless. A force that unmakes everything leaves nothing for entropy to work on, nothing to decay, nothing to change, nothing to become something other than what it was. So I broke myself. I made my own dissolution the engine of everything that would ever grow, change, fail, adapt, and become. My counterpart sacrificed his freedom to impose a rule. I sacrificed my wholeness to make ruin productive. You're welcome.
From these two acts of sacrifice, two supreme beings choosing willingly at terrible cost to diminish themselves for the sake of something that did not yet exist, reality became possible. The dimensional hierarchy assembled itself around their sacrifice. The source plane, the raw reservoir of all energy, all potential, all life waiting to be allocated. The structural plane, the lawgiver, the blueprint, the place where Axiom's final imposition was permanently inscribed into the fabric of everything that would ever be built below it. The moral plane, where raw neutral energy was refined into its two moral expressions. From the celestial heavenly planes came radiance, the architect's tool, the force of healing, order, and divine light. From the celestial hellscapes came fel, the schism's weapon, the force of corruption, consumption, and entropic darkness, and between them, holding the space where direct contact would cause an instant existential catastrophe. Limbo, the 0 point, the buffer, the place of absolute neutrality at the center of everything. Below the moral plane, time was added, sequence, history, the understanding that one thing could come before another, and that death, therefore, became inevitable. And below time, the material plane, the front line of all things, the only place in all of existence where a soul could inhabit a body of earth and water, where the friction of order and chaos in the atmosphere produced weather, the physical argument between two forces that would never resolve. Reality was built, but a reality with no one in it is just architecture. There was one more presence, one who had been there from before the splitting, one who had watched the primordial rupture and absorbed the fullness of what existence was before it divided. He had been growing in the silence, learning from everything, condensing the infinite into something that could hold it. He was not Axiom. He was not Spartax. He predated them both. He was the creator, and he had been waiting at the center of a desert oasis on a world called Eden, a world that would one day exist at the convergence point of every reality simultaneously, beneath a vast crystalline diamond containing the void of all existence. He began to work. From the sacred earth he formed a body, skull and spine, muscle and bone, the 32 teeth, the hands built for holding and making and fighting and reaching. From water he poured a soul into it, formless and eternal, not of the body, merely choosing to dwell within it. And the water turned red, coursing through veins, filling the chambers of a heart that had not yet beaten. From the air he gathered a mind, wild and boundless, a sphere of whirling wind above the brow, and breathed it into lungs that had not yet drawn breath. And then, from the golden red sun above, channeled through the crystalline diamond until it blazed brighter than the star itself, he drew fire. A blazing beam struck the body, and in one searing, singular instant, every mystery of existence poured into it. The eyes opened.
What is your name?
The first man drew breath. The first voice in the history of the material plane spoke a single word into the silence of a world still learning what it meant to exist. And everything changed. His name, his story, what he became, what all of this was building toward. That begins next time.
My name is Adamu, and I was the first.